Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today for our webinar. My name is Iqbal Branch and I head up marketing for Option City. Today we're excited to talk about some of our popular third-party applications available for Metro through our City store. Our flagship product, Metro, is focused on providing the best pricing, risk, analytics, and execution for market makers, proprietary trading firms, and institutional traders. The presentation today is really geared towards users of our Metro platform. We launched our City store last year so that we could allow for more customized functionality for our Metro platform, and today's presentation is the first one of a series of webinars focused on highlighting some of these popular add-on applications available through the City store. Today I have Kevin Reeds joining me from Axonetric, who has built a number of these applications, and we're really excited to have Kevin here and kind of go through in-depth demos of these applications. I know they've been quite popular with many of our traders, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin.
Thanks, Iqbal. Welcome to the attendees. My name is Kevin Reeves. I'm a senior algorithmic quantitative developer based here in Chicago, Illinois. I've been working with Option City for going on 4 years now to develop some of these algos. That's kind of the term I use, is algos, but they're also called apps or Metro apps. And so I've done some webinars in the past on a number of these algos. Today I'm going to briefly touch on 2 of them that I've already done prior webinars on. And so I'm not going to go into much detail on those, although I'm going to give a brief overview. And then the final algo, which will be the Auto-RFQ algo, I am going to demo that briefly, and that'll be the first time that algo has ever been demoed. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to type them in. And we don't have a terrible lot of time, so I'm probably going to go fairly quickly if possible. But at the end, if there's any time left, I'll certainly be glad to answer any questions. So the first algo I'm going to talk about briefly is the Auto-Hedger algo. And this algo provides additional functionality and features beyond what's available in Metro's Auto-Hedger mission. It's a very popular algo, and it's proven to work very well, has great results, and I get good feedback from it. And obviously, for any options trader, hedging is half the battle. If you can make an extra tick on the hedge, that can, in many cases, be a substantial part of, or even more than the edge that's being made on the option side. The optimal hedging execution strategy under realistic market assumptions can be proven to be a mixture of passive and aggressive execution. Options traders will be able to leverage both of these types of hedging in order to get the best results. So what are some of the key features of this algo? It intelligently switches between passive and aggressive execution modes depending on spread conditions and user-specified criteria. In most cases, the passive mode is what you start with, and then if the spread is not looking advantageous, then it will instantaneously convert to aggressive execution. Now, there's a lot of benefits to passive execution, even beyond potentially making or saving an extra tick. And for example, one of those benefits would be the ability to offset hedges before they've actually been executed. So if you're working in order to buy futures and then you have some options trades come in with the opposing delta sign, you can potentially cancel some of those working orders before they ever execute, thereby saving yourself commission or expenses. This algo also allows for optional iceberging functionality, which in modern markets and with the level of algorithmic penetration and level of automation that's in these markets, iceberging can be very important, and I'd say that the majority of markets probably can benefit from iceberging. This algo also tracks delta remainders to avoid over or under hedging scenarios. So for example, if you buy a futures lot to cover your delta and there's 30 delta left over, it remembers that, so that if you do another trade, maybe a strategy or two, and they don't have they have 30 delta, it just obviously is not going to. It's going to cancel that out, and it's not going to waste time getting another futures lot when it has those remainders left over. It's highly configurable. Nearly all the relevant execution parameters are exposed to the user. Lastly, it also allows for manual entry of futures orders. So if you want to enter an order into the futures ladder and have it work using the same logic that the algo would normally use for an auto hedging scenario, you're able to do that with the algo. And so it will apply the exact same logic that would normally be used, and you won't have to babysit it, so to speak. So some of the latest features that I want to cover since the last webinar, the latest version of this algo is version 2.57. And so two of the most recent features that have been added, which I really haven't had a chance to ever talk about. First of all, there's one called fill price stickiness in milliseconds. And this is a really kind of nifty feature that basically allows the algo to have a user-defined period of stickiness in the working order. So this can come into play, for example, if you're iceberging and say one chunk of your iceberg gets filled at a certain price. Well, sometimes that fill can change the spread. For example, maybe the spread upticks due to your fill, but some traders have discovered that if they were to just wait maybe like half a second or some very small amount of time, that then the algos that are essentially trying to game them would basically come back down to the original price and replenish the liquidity at the original price level. And so the original algo was almost too fast, so to speak, in that, you know, one chunk would get filled and then the market would move and then it would fill the next chunk at perhaps one tick worse than the original price. And so this optional feature allows you to force the algo to wait a certain small amount of time so that you can potentially get refilled at that same original good price level. And so I've heard good feedback on this feature from users, and some of the values I've seen used are like 500 milliseconds, which is half a second, and that seems to work pretty well in a couple different markets it's been tested in. The second new feature, which I've never talked about before, is the ability to optionally turn on split strategy hedging per expiry. So if you have a calendar spread that has futures with different expirations as part of the legs, usually the traditional way of hedging would be you'd hedge it into like the front month, say, but if you turn on this option, the algo can actually individuate deltas against the individual expirations. So not every trader, you know, wants to use this feature, but there are some that do prefer to do it this way, so this is a nice option for them. So the second algo I'm going to speak about is the Profiteer, and essentially it's an enhanced electronic eye, but it has, you know, some additional features and functionality, and it was designed to efficiently scan a large number of instruments. There's lots of filtering options, and there's lots of side options. So in addition to, you know, buy, sell, or buy and or sell, you also have buy Vega, sell Vega, buy Gamma, sell Gamma, close out only, which means you're looking for edge only among instruments which you already own in your current portfolio. There's buy to close, sell to close. So you have a lot more options in terms of portfolio management with the side options. Also, there is a novel liquidity making mode, which is sort of an idea which I'm really proud of, and it's turned out to work very well in practice, and it's called dynamic participation. And unlike the traditional liquidity taking mode where you're firing IOCs, this mode works by inserting short duration limit orders into the market when certain events trigger this, which is basically the triggering event can be considered sort of an iceberg detector, and it's fully configurable. So when a certain size trades in the market in a certain rolling time window for a level that meets the edge set up on that mission, then this liquidity making mode can kick in and stick an order into the market for a very short duration. So the duration might be 5 seconds, for example. And so you have the market inserted into the, you have the order inserted into the market, and if it gets filled, great. If 5 seconds elapse and it's not filled, it gets automatically canceled. Or if the futures tick adversely, it will be instantly canceled. So the level of risk is quite low, but it is a liquidity making mode, and by inserting your order into the market in this fashion, you basically guarantee that you're first in line if the next chunk of that iceberg comes through. The best indication of future demand is past demand. So when trades occur in the market, there's usually a good chance that another trade could take place at that same price point. And this allows participation in trades that otherwise you would never really have a chance realistically at being a part of, because they are matched almost instantly inside that zone of edge. And you'd see them flash on your ticker, but the chances of your IOCs getting filled would be virtually nil. The only way to beat, some of these HFT players is to basically get first and become first in line in the queue, and then no matter how fast they are, they're always behind you. The other advantage of this mode is that the edge that you can capture in this mode has proven to be much more dependable than the edge that you fire at when you are the only person firing. So if you're scanning the book and you fire an IOC at some resting order or quote, you see edge there, but that edge is a function of a lot of other things that may or may not be correct. Where basically what your vol curve settings are, the option pricing models you've used, there's a lot of different reasons that can cause edge to not be as real as you would have hoped for. However, in this mode, you basically are getting consensus because another market maker was a counterparty to that prior trade, and you basically within a split second of that prior trade also see edge. And so for you to be on the opposing side as the original market maker would require that you have a sizable error, because you'd have to cross the side and still add on your edge on the other side. And so because of this reason, the edges that are captured in this mode have proven to be much more reliable. Profiteer Algo also allows us advanced use cases, including tiered edge-dependent participation, which basically means that you can set it up in a way that if there's a little bit of edge, you can enter for a small quantity, and if there's a lot of edge, you can enter for more. And so that's kind of nice when, if there is a good opportunity, you wouldn't mind piling in for some extra quantity. So just to kind of go over some of the latest features in this algo since they've last been discussed, the latest version is 4.03, and two features which have not been discussed yet, which are new, is there's the match strike width, which is a new column on the main grid, and it allows you to filter strategies that match that row based on the distance between the high strike in the strategy and the low strike price in the strategy. So for example, if you had a butterfly, that would control the distance between the high and low strike. So basically how wide or how tight is that fly. If you had a vertical, same thing. So you basically can narrow down how tight or how narrow your spreads are, and you can control gamma and some other Greek aspects to your strategies. So that's proven to be a useful filtering feature. And of course, there's all the already existing filtering features, delta range and strategy type and all the others that are built right into the algo, but those are probably just intuitive. I'm not going to go into those. And then lastly, there's another new feature, which is max edge and tick sanity check. And previously, this was a hard-coded value, but I've now made it user configurable. The default is 15 ticks, and it basically says that, if you ever see too much edge, that's kind of a warning sign that something might be wrong. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen. There could be options pricing model misconfiguration. There could be stale market data. There's a number of things that can occur in real life that, if you see 1,000 ticks of edge, you probably don't want to be making that trade. So this check has proven to work quite well in practice, and it's definitely prevented some bad trades from occurring. And the only problem was that in the past, some users complained because in certain illiquid markets, it literally can occur that you would find 40 or 50 ticks of edge. I've heard one trader in cotton claim that. In order to accommodate the different traders in the different markets, I've now made this a user configurable setting, so you can set it to whatever is your personal preference. If a trade is detected with more edge than this value, it will simply be ignored. So finally, we get to the third algo, which I want to talk about, the Auto-RFQ algo. It is a very nice algo, and I get very good feedback from the users that use it, and it basically facilitates a more sophisticated RFQ responding operation, and it has some additional features and extra functionality than what's available in the Metro RFQ responder mission. And so some of these key features are listed here. There's unlimited number of delta bucket groups, and there's unlimited number of delta buckets within each of these groups. And the edge settings are also set just in, the edge units are just in simple ticks, so it's not percentage of edge. And Some traders have said that they do prefer that, so that's kind of nice. And there's lots of filtering options. Of course, you've got your basic strategy types and expiration, but in addition to that, there's a lot of other things that you can do with the algo. Max number of contract legs, max total legs, max strike width, which is that same field actually that's in the Profiteer, and some others as well. And so these fields really allow you to get more specific in how you respond to certain classes of strategies that might otherwise be pretty ambiguous. For example, generics is a very, very diverse group of strategies, and you really don't want to be responding to all generics, if you are responding to them at all, with a one-size-fits-all type of approach. You really would prefer to break that down according to probably a lot of different things. There's also these very useful joining rules that get applied to the RFQ response, and one is never top alone. And this basically means that if your RFQ response would be tighter than the existing market, it will widen one or both sides out until they are joining the existing market. So you'll never be tighter than the existing market. And then there's a second joining rule, and these are checkboxes, which you can check per mission. And this one's called tighten book gaps. And what that means is if you're wider than the existing market on any side by more than one tick, it will tighten down your response so that you're no more than one tick off the existing market. So that can tighten you down. And then these two joining rules work in tandem with an optional initial delay, which you can specify per mission, so that you can actually put in there like 3 seconds or 5 seconds, or if you don't want to, you can put in 0 seconds. But you can allow other respondents to create that market, and then you can use that information to help guide your response. And there also are some additional settings that you can configure which will allow you to optionally bypass that delay if there already is, let's say an RFQ is generated and the algo checks that market and that strategy already has a fairly tight market or a fairly liquid market based on size, and you can set up these other settings that will actually allow you to bypass the way if there already is a liquid or tight market. But if there's not a liquid or tight market, then you can wait, let everybody else generate the responses, and then use their information to help guide your response. Lastly, there's a pretty cool feature called RFQ on trades, which basically treats any trade in the market as if it was an RFQ, and then it will then generate a response for that quote-unquote trade as if it was an RFQ. So therefore, as I said before with the Profiteer, one of the best indications of future demand is past demand. So if a trade occurs in the market, it would seem quite reasonable that you would send out an RFQ response as if someone had RFQ'd that. And this does seem to improve participation in practice. So in Metro, all the Metro apps are available via this windy road icon. You just right-click on it, you get these options, and here's the job control. So that pops open this dialog where you can start and stop the different algos or apps that you've added on. So here's my Auto-RFQ job. There's some configuration settings, which I'm not going to get into now, but some of these are the less frequently used settings that you can configure as you please. And so here's the main grid that you use to interact with the Auto-RFQ algo. And so here I've set up a sample row. I've named it, resize these real quick. I've named this row verticals. So I've named my row ES verticals. You can type in whatever you want here. And here is the delta bucket that I've chosen to use for this mission. And I called it bucket 1. And that correlates to this tab right here, which is where my delta buckets are. And you can rename these whatever you want. You could call it default or whatever name you choose. And like I said, here I've got a total of, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 or 10 buckets, but you can have as many as you want. So whatever granularity you need, and you can have as many buckets in the set as you wish. So here you set your the upper end of the delta tier, and then you've got your bid and ask edges and quantities, and these are just in ticks. So this would be half a tick of edge on both sides. I got outside 500. So you basically point to which set of delta buckets you want to use, and then here's where in Option City you're able to leverage this match editor to quickly tell the algo which types of instruments or options you'd like to respond to. So in this case, I picked my ES symbol. I want type strategies. So the expirations, I could, if I wanted, right now it says that I've got 310 matches matching the vertical strategy type. But if I wanted to just get, for example, the front month, I could say, so if I said D16, which is the code for December of 2016, I got 251 matches. And let's say I also wanted to grab the next month out and get March of 2017, I could put a comma and then pull those in. So you can see that these filter fields are quite convenient, and you don't need to be, selecting a bunch of rows manually. You can just literally put commas, and if you wanted to get other things in with the verticals, you could, if you desired, like for example, let's say I was doing a row for straddles, the code there would be STRD. So I've got 35 matches on those 2 months, but maybe I want to do the strangles with those because I'm going to use the same set of delta buckets. So I could do STRG, and then you see that I got both of those types, and the number of matches has increased to 59. And you can also control whether you want coverage or not here by saying either only covered or never covered as well. So that's how you point to which options you want to respond to. And then here is the max strike width field, which really is not too important for straddles or strangles. I guess for strangles it would have some meaning, but for straddles it would be irrelevant. But if I was doing a row for butterflies or verticals, then obviously I could control how tight they are. And just the number of ticks between the highest and lowest strike. And then here I have max contract legs, which again is not very important for straddles or strangles, but if you were doing generics, for example, it could be quite important. You may not want to deal with a generic that has 8 legs. So there's the max contract legs, which is the maximum number of legs on any of the given contracts in the spread, and then there's the max total legs, which is the total number of contracts, including if you add up all the ratios. So a butterfly, a total of 4 contracts in total. If I wanted to select the RFQ on trades option, I could select that here. Max initial delay in seconds, I got 3 seconds as my initial delay. I could say never top alone if I don't want to ever become tighter than the original market. And by the way, if there is no existing market, never top alone would prevent your response from going in entirely. Tighten book gaps would tighten me down if I was wider than I wanted to be. Here's the timeout for how long is the RFQ response going to last before it times out. This would be 1 minute. I could easily make this, if I wanted to make this 3 minutes, I could say 180. Timeout and fill, this is another feature I didn't mention. Basically, if you're ever worried about maybe getting too many fills, or you're not interested in getting a whole lot of fills on your responses, there are some traders who have mentioned that they would like the algo to stop responding if too many get filled in too short a period of time. So this is an additional feature, and you can configure it in the configure screen for the algo. There's some other settings in here that pertain to the on-fill. You can see these 3 right here. And so they work in tandem with this. And so basically you can set it up so that if more than this size trades in this certain rolling time window, that you will then place that strategy on a temporary timeout, and no further responses will be made regardless of how many other RFQs come in. And then lastly, you can put a multiplier. So if the market gets really volatile, you could multiply all your edges by 2, and then you don't got to mess with your buckets. You could just put 2.0 in there, hit apply changes, and you would just say refresh quotes. Here's a little panel that you use to control whether you're going to be responding or not. You can turn it on or off. Right now it's off. I can turn it on, and now I'm live. So that's pretty much it. It's not a terribly complicated algo, but it allows you to be very granular in how you respond to RFQs and to use high resolution if that's what you want or need. If there is any questions, you guys can type them in. And
please set your edges on Profiteer.
Okay. So to demo the Profiteer, I'm going to turn it on real quick. and then I would load the dashboard for it because I wasn't planning on demoing this algo, so I didn't prepare it, but I would pick the Profiteer Dashboard, which is right here. I'd select it, and now here's my Profiteer Dashboard. And so here I've got some sample rows I was using in my testing. The columns unfortunately need to be resized, but you simply, so you basically can have any number of rows, any number of missions that you want, and then you would set up, you have these parameter set names. So here I've got like a 1T, which is my little nomenclature for one tick. And so that points to the standardized grid, to the 1T row. And here, there's a lot of columns on this algo, so I got to resize these real quick. But once you size the columns that you're liking, you can hit Save Layout, and then you don't have to fix these. But unfortunately, this is the first time I'm using this machine in the office here. And so it's the here's the column that you would set. It's called min edge in ticks. And so 1T, you just put this to 1. You hit Apply Changes. And so when you started this row, it would then use that 1 tick level as the minimum required edge in order for it to fire. And if I turn it on now, it's not going to give us a legitimate edge here because I don't have my vol curve set up, so it's going to have some crazy edges. But turn this on, you hit Apply Changes and go live with this row. And it looks probably like it deactivated it because it sees my vol curves aren't set up. If I checked in the log, I could go to the Profiteer and figure out what the exact reason is. Oh, it looks like it fired instantly because there's all this, probably a bunch of edge because I don't have my vol curve set up. So, it looks like there was 1.2 ticks of edge. So I actually fired almost instantaneously at the time that I turned it on, and there was an opportunity for 1.26 ticks of edge. And so it fired at this, looks like it fired at this diagonal and got filled. Now this is in the dev environment, so it's actually not a real fill, but it's a simulated fill. And so that's how you would do the edge in that algo. Now I didn't have time to go through this algo in detail, but like I said, there is another webinar where I do go over this algo, as well as videos on my site. They're a little bit outdated, but they do show the basic premise of how you use this algo.
Great. Thanks so much, Kevin. This was great. And if you have additional questions or if you want to get a personal demo on this, definitely reach out to your account manager or Option City, and he can put you in touch with Kevin. As I had mentioned earlier, we'll also be doing a webinar next week on Thursday at 2 o'clock Central, going over our latest application, which is the BBO, Best Bid and Best Offer application, which allows you to put in one order and trade across 3 different exchanges. So we're excited to offer you that next week, and thank you for everyone for joining today.